order is because of the fact that typically in the past, in years past, there was always like one big move, right? In years past, in NFL free agency, there was a big move at the beginning of free agency. And this year, there wasn't such a move, right? It was more of a, all right, tampering is here. We could actually talk about making deals. And to see where we went from DeAndre Swift going to the Bears to almost 3 hours later, Saquon Barkley joining the Eagles. It's a very interesting series of events. And I'm telling you guys right now, you have to look big picture at these kind of moves. And I'm not saying you guys can't like or dislike the moves, but I'm warning you guys, you have to look bigger picture, because when you have the additions the Eagles did, let's first start with Barkley. I know for some of you out there, you love it. I know for some of you, you're very apprehensive about it. And I respect both perspectives on that. See, that's how I look at these things. I look at it as there's two sides to a conversation. I think Barkley is here because the Eagles are seriously trying to be a better offense. One of the biggest problems with the Eagles offense last year was because their offense, as people have pointed out, lacked creativity. And when you lack creativity as a fundamental principle, and then you try all of a sudden to be more creative, and you don't have the personnel or the play callers to do it, it bites you in the rear, basically. Remember, this is what Jason Kelce said about a month ago, maybe a little more than a month ago, about on his New Heights podcast, about the problems with the Eagles offense last season. Okay. Jason Kelce, New Heights podcast, said this.
He's done a little bit of everything. You know, obviously he comes from Boise, and it's
it was wacky back then, man. It was odd you want to say wacky. It was a different offense, though, and they did a
lot of stuff. I mean, it was creative. That's what it comes down to. And I think there was a lot of people, even looking back ourselves, that realized that we could have potentially been a little bit more creative, I guess, offensively. And I think Kellen will bring a lot of that.
So if the premise is that Kellen Moore is going to bring more creativity, okay? And the Eagles have a history of not signing running backs, not giving big money to running backs. There's really only a couple guys they've ever done this with. The infamous DeMarco Murray, and that blew up in their face. Now, that was also the Chip Kelly era and all of the garbage that goes along with the fiasco that was the end of the Chip Kelly era. So I can't sit here and point to that as an example. The only other significant time that they brought a big-time running back in free agency was Ricky Waters. Well, what do Ricky Waters and Saquon Barkley have in common? They're both Pennsylvania guys. They're both guys who understand this area and what they're walking into. So you bring in a big name running back. You bring in a guy who's familiar with the area, grew up basically an hour outside of Philadelphia, right? Goes to Penn State, has this career in the NFL, and now he comes to Philadelphia. And I don't think that we can neglect the reality that when you bring a guy like Saquon Barkley in, that the offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, had something to do with it. Dan Orlovsky earlier today on ESPN SportsCenter about the reason why Saquon Barkley is here, he points to Kellen Moore and who Kellen Moore is as a play caller.
Creative minds in the NFL. How he uses Saquon Barkley as something other than just a traditional tailback is going to go a long way to determining, is this worth it? And it was that move outside of the ordinary for the organization worth all the money investment-wise.
And it's not just you and me having this conversation here on 97.3 ESPN. Josh Hennick hanging out with you on a Monday night about Barkley and the Eagles and their history and why this is so unique and so different. I'll get to Bryce Huff and Landon Dickerson and all that in just a minute. But this was something that we have seen today that is all surprising to us, because it's surprising to a lot of people, to the point that Michael Lombardi, former NFL general manager, said this a few days ago on the Pat McAfee show.
Saquon Barkley, they have the Eagles really interested in them. But of their history, Philadelphia has never put money into a running back. They've drafted him in the second round, but they've never spent 13, 14, 15 million per year on a running back. So would they be interested in Barkley at a certain price? I'm sure they would. Do I think they go to 14 or 15? It's never been in their DNA to do that. What's been in their DNA is to sign defensive linemen, which is what I think they'll do as soon as it starts.
And by the way, that was the first signing the Eagles made today, was Bryce Huff, the defensive pass rusher. Now, you heard what he said there. 14, 15, 16 million per year on a running back. But hold on. He's still correct, because the Eagles are not paying Saquon Barkley 14, 15, 16, 17 million a year. If he plays at just the bare minimum of his contract, it's 26 million guaranteed. So let's assume that Howie Roseman, because he's Howie Roseman, has some sort of way to make the money work, right? Saquon Barkley, at bare minimum, is going to make about 13 million a year. And you think, well, that's still below what the franchise tag would have been this year, which would have been about 15.8 million. So the Eagles are still actually signing a guy for a lesser value, a lesser number than maybe we expected. Furthermore, if you go by the Adam Schefter numbers of 3 years, 37.5 million, sorry, 37.75 million. If he meets all the criteria for that money, that still comes out to 12.5 million. Again, not 15, not 16, not 17 million. The contract, according to Adam Schefter, is worth total value, if he hits all of the markers in the contract, every goal in there, worth it to 46.75 million. If he hits every number possible in his incentives, he then will make 15.58 million, which is still less than the franchise tag number of 15.8 million. So even though the Eagles have historically not been a team that has spent big money, they still didn't spend the biggest money. They still got him on a reasonable contract. And to the other part of Lombardi's point, what did the Eagles do today? The first move they made, defensive line. They got a pass rusher. Now, the Bryce Huff conversation to me is fascinating because, one, you're bringing in a guy for more upside than production. This is the opposite of what you did a few years ago with Hassan Reddick. Because when you signed Reddick a couple of years ago, remember, it was actually 2 years ago. It was very early in free agency, and the report came out that the Eagles were going to get Hassan Reddick. People are like, whoa, that's a big move for the Eagles. Well, Reddick had already given you 2 straight years of double-digit sacks. And he did it with 2 different coordinators. He did it with 2 different teams. So when you signed him, there was a track record to look at. Bryce Huff is about 3 years younger than Reddick when you signed him, but he has played less than Reddick in the NFL. So what you're doing is you're bringing in somebody who is 3 years younger than what Reddick was during his first year in Philadelphia. And you're bringing in somebody who has a strong upside. On top of that, you are also bringing in a guy who is potentially going to be here beyond the one contract. Bryce Huff, who had 10 sacks last year, played less than 50% of his team's snaps. Last season, Hassan Reddick played the third most snaps on the Eagles defense. So you're going from Reddick, who had 74%, all the way down to a guy who had 42%. So you're actually signing a guy for his potential more than what we actually know he can do. Then that's the other side of the coin. What if he fits the mold of what Vic Fangio wants from his defense? Remember, Andrew Van Ginkel went to the Vikings today. So you're not going to get one of those former Dolphins guys. Christian Wilkins signed a massive contract with the Las Vegas Raiders. Not going to get him. The guys who were with Fangio last year are not coming here. So then what do? You go out and get players that Fangio says, I look at this guy and he fits my scheme. And now there's reporting out there that the Eagles could trade one or both of Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat. Now, unless there's another move coming that I have not seen yet, that they're going to sign another free agent pass rusher, I don't foresee them trading both Sweat and Reddick. I think it will be one or the other. Because realistically, you don't want to go into the season with Bryce Huff and Nolan Smith and Brandon Graham as your primary 3 guys. So you have to put yourself in a position where you're not burning out any particular player, Huff, Smith, or Graham. I think for the Eagles, they would like to have Reddick around for one more year because I think the Eagles know that he is still a productive and good player. I just think they don't want to give him big money as he gets older. And then you look at Sweat. Sweat is an interesting conversation that we can have throughout the next few days. Because while Hassan Reddick turns 30 later this year, Josh Sweat is a guy who has always been kind of under this strange cloud where you're never fully sure if he's ever going to play up to his expectations. He's had one great year, 2022. Aside from that, his entire NFL career has been solid but not great. 2019, 4 sacks. 2020, 6 sacks. 2021, 7.5 sacks. Last year, 6.5 sacks. And you go to the quarterback hits, he's never had more than 23 in a season. So he's a solid pass rusher. He's also younger than Reddick. Sweat is about 4 years younger. He turns 27 later this month. So I could see them trading Reddick, letting him move on and go get a contract somewhere else, keeping Sweat and Huff with Nolan Smith and Brandon Graham. And by the way, on top of all this, the Eagles have made another move just a few minutes ago. The Eagles are signing a linebacker, and it's another infamous or famous, depending on who you want to ask, 1 year Howie Roseman signs a linebacker deal. Zach Bond, the former Saints linebacker, he has signed with Philadelphia on a 1-year deal. Bond spent the last 40 years with the New Orleans Saints. And He's a solid player, but he's nothing special. That's why I called it a typical Howie Roseman go gets a random linebacker move. And this is in part because they definitely need depth. If you have all of those guys as free agents, Nicholas Morrow, Shaq Leonard, Zach Cunningham, Sean Bradley, all these guys are free agents, you're not going to bring them all back. So you had to bring somebody in. And listen, Zach Bond is a guy who he's not even 30 years old yet. He's still in his mid-20s. He just turned 27 a few months ago. He won't turn 28 until this upcoming December. And he's a guy who could play special teams. He was the Saints' #1 special teams guy the last couple of years. And what was Sean Bradley so good at with the Eagles the last couple of years? It was special teams. So he may not be your starting linebacker at all this year, but at least he gives you some depth at the linebacker position and special teams. Definitely a Howie Roseman move to bring in a guy who can play some in your regular defense, but is a high-level special teams guy. Josh Hennick here on Game Night 97.3 ESPN FM, the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. I see some text coming in. I'll get to you guys coming up on the other side. Dan and EHT and more. 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. And don't forget, coming up in about 25 minutes from now, your next opportunity to qualify for the Phillies trip to Baltimore, presented by Phillies Sports Trips, where you and a friend get a full expenses paid trip to Baltimore to watch the Phillies play the Orioles at Camden Yards with a full-out catered pregame, everything you could want from a trip to a Phillies game in Baltimore, thanks to Phillies Sports Trips. And you can win it if you are caller number 7 in about 25 minutes from now when you hear the sounder here on 97.3 ESPN.
It's Sixers next tomorrow night on 97.3 ESPN with the voice of the Sixers, Tom McGinnis, calling all the exciting play-by-play action.
Kyle to Buddy Hield for 3, out of transition, bucket good, triple, and Buddy Hield with 5 in a row.
Coverage begins at 7:30. It's Sixers basketball all season long on South Jersey's radio home for Philadelphia 76ers basketball.
Hammers it in! Are you kidding me? He rocks the rim!
97.3 ESPN.
Picture this. It's Saturday morning and you're on your John Deere compact tractor. You're effortlessly breaking ground on your new landscaping project. Next, you're moving piles of rocks just by moving a lever. And now you're enjoying the warmth of the sun as you clear brush across your pasture. We could keep trying to put you in the moment, but to really understand everything you can do with a John Deere compact tractor, you just have to get in the seat. Learn more at johndeere.com/get-in-the-seat or visit a dealer near you.
Hey Flyers fans, it's time to level up your game day ritual with the ultimate power duo, the Philadelphia Flyers and Union Forge Vodka. Picture this, the thrill of the game, roar of the crowd, and in your hand, a glass of ultra smooth, 6 times distilled Union Forge perfection. Union Forge is made right here in Philly, so whether you're cheering at the arena or creating your fan zone at home, make it epic with Union Forge Vodka, the official vodka of the Philadelphia Flyers. Cheer on the Flyers with the best tasting vodka produced right here in Philly. Grab a Union Forge bottle today.
A healthy weight, more energy, and smooth, regular bowel movements. 3 things everyone strives for.
It's me, Chuck Norris. There's one really important thing we don't talk about enough: our health. Achy joints, digestive issues, weight gain, and fatigue. We're told these are normal signs of aging. So working with a team of health experts, we came up with Morning Kick.
Morning Kick is a revolutionary formula combining 10 different supplements in one. Probiotics that help you lose weight, prebiotics for digestion, superfoods for muscles and joints, and several of the most powerful anti-aging supplements on earth. It'll help you feel youthful, energized, focused, and help manage stress.
Anybody can achieve great health regardless of their age.
Go to roundhouseprovisions.com. Use code SUPPORT or text SUPPORT to 511-511 and claim 40% off today.
Every purchase comes with our 90-day money-back guarantee.
Text SUPPORT to 511-511. Morning Kick. These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Tax fees may apply.
To celebrate the new Quick Draw Progressive from the New Jersey Lottery, give it up for the rolling jackpot.
The jackpot keeps rolling, rolling, jackpot rolling.
Quick Draw is now Quick Draw Progressive with a free shot at winning a rolling jackpot with every play.
Quick Draw. Jackpot. Quick Draw. Play today.
Play Quick Draw Progressive today.
Anything can happen in Jersey.
Must be 18 or older to buy a lottery ticket. Please play responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. 120,000 miles of night drives, daily commutes, and who knows how many.
Are we there yet?
Through countless fixes, elbow grease, and a new radiator, you kept your ride alive. With eBay Motors, you have over 122 million parts to keep it running. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, they'll be the perfect fit every time. Plus, at these prices, well, we're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Anyone can struggle with addiction. And when you're struggling, there's no shame in getting help.
Call 844-REACH-NJ. Talk to a counselor for confidential addiction help and see if you're eligible for no-cost treatment. 844-REACH-NJ from New Jersey Human Services.
Sorry, but we actually have a wait list for our Monstera.
Shaw's greenhouse is really bringing in the green.
We can't keep snake plants in stock.
She needs a construction manager to build on her roots and grow.
We could add a whole section for ferns. Here we'd have dahlias, dahlias, and more dahlias.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Pro. Progressive Fence and Rail.
Hey, Mike Gill here. Wishing for an outdoor upgrade that will make the neighbors jealous? My friends at Progressive Fence and Railing are your secret weapons. Whether it's a durable fence or railing, a stylish deck, a beautiful awning, or a serene gazebo, they've got the magic touch. Experience top-notch quality, impeccable craftsmanship, and finance options that fit your budget. Grab your free estimate today.
Pro. ProgressiveFenceandRail.com.
My wife and I both, we ended up mildly sick for a few months, and the nasal congestion was probably the worst part. I had like a post-nasal drip, just super congested all the time. We were taking everything we possibly could, but nothing really worked.
Kyrie was miserable until a friend recommended Navage. Navage offers immediate drug-free congestion relief, flushing your nasal passages with refreshing saline and sucking out mucus, germs, and other airborne irritants. Don't live in misery this cold season. Use Navage so you can breathe easier, sleep better, and feel your best right away.
The biggest thing Navage has done has completely cleaned out my nasal passages. It was from the first use. I was able to just clear out anything that was stopping me from breathing correctly. Navage helps me clear the way, literally clear the way for me to operate better in the rest of my life.
Experience the Navage difference yourself. Navage is available at Navage.com or at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid. Navage, Navage.
Something good to know from First Bank of Sea Isle City. We have all of today's innovative banking products just like the big banks, but we offer something they can't. A personal community focus. Let's get you started with Bill Pay. You save time when you pay your bills online. It's fast, easy, and convenient. First Bank of Sea Isle City, a community bank that delivers more for you every day. Personal service, today's technology, from the people who truly care. Learn more at firstbankseaisle.com.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
If you're Saquon, you're looking at the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line and you're going, hold on, this is the number one team in the NFL in run block win rate last year. And I'm leaving a team that right now can't keep the same group of five on the field. I had probably one of my worst years in terms of yardage before initial contact that I've ever had. I'm struggling just to crack 4 per carry behind this offensive line. And look, that's not to disparage the Giants offensive line. That's just the way it is. And you're going to maybe one of the best. If you're him right now, you're going, I got paid more and I'm going in the division and I got a better offensive line. Kellen Moore's probably sitting there going, let's go, baby. Let's go to work. Good for Saquon, though. He deserves this. He deserves this opportunity. But you can best believe the pressure will be on him now to go ahead and deliver outsized results.
That's former NFL executive Louis Riddick on the Eagles and Saquon Barkley. And some interesting points by Riddick we'll get to here this hour. And also your text board messages, 609-403-0973, your DMs into the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. You know, it's a very interesting conversation because, you know, he painted it as Barkley wanted to come here. That Barkley looked at the Eagles and said, I'd rather be there than the Giants. And well, I don't deny that that is certainly a real reason for why Saquon came here. I do also understand that there is other reporting out there, and I know it's frowned upon or whatever you want to call it by each network to talk about other networks reporting, okay? But there were a lot of non-ESPN reporters out there, okay, from Diana Rossini to Josina Anderson of CBS Sports. You know, I saw a lot of different people out there earlier today who were saying that this was a bidding war between the Texans and the Eagles. Now, as Mike Gill asked the question earlier on the Sports Bash here on 97.3 ESPN, Mike asked the question, is that just the agent putting information out there to try to drive up the bidding war and the value? And that certainly may be the case. And, you know, maybe the Texans weren't going to offer more than the Eagles did. For all we know, Saquon could have gone into this process. And look, I'm not going to read too much into what he had said in some of the interviews before this happened. You know, I know he was on the Up and Adams show and he was non-committal to basically anything and said, look, I'm going into free agency and we'll see what happens. And he was non-committal to any outcome, right? So, you know, I'm not going to read too much into those kind of conversations, but what I will read into is the fact that there's certainly a possibility that Saquon, who's a guy from the Philadelphia area, might have turned to his agent and said, look, if I have an opportunity to go play for the Eagles and it's at a number that we think is acceptable, then it's certainly possible that he went and did that. It's certainly possible that a guy who played his college ball at Penn State, right? This is a guy who went to Whitehall High School in Whitehall, PA, okay? He has Pennsylvania roots. He has a connection to the area. And for those who don't know where Whitehall High School is, it's near Allentown in Bethlehem, PA. Just to give you the idea. So he's familiar with Eagles country. He's familiar with Pennsylvania. There's certainly a possibility that he may have said, look, I don't want to go to the Houston Texans unless they're going to pay me a certain number. I don't want to go to the Tennessee Titans unless they're going to pay me a certain number. I don't want to go to the Dallas Cowboys unless they pay me a certain number. It's certainly possible that he may have always been given the lean to the Eagles because of those other variables, because of his upbringing, because of where he went to high school, because of where he went to college. He wants to be still near his family in the Northeast. You know, there's a lot of variables go into this stuff that are not specifically football related. So he may have told his agent, look, unless you can get X number of dollars out of Houston Texans, Tennessee Titans, Green Bay Packers, or whoever. And I bring up those other teams because the Texans were reported by many outlets, including The Athletic and CBS Sports, to be interested in Barkley. And we saw that Tony Pollard left Dallas and went to the Tennessee Titans to replace Derrick Henry. We saw that Josh Jacobs went from the Raiders to the Packers, and the Packers released Adam Jones because they signed Josh Jacobs. So in theory, there could have been other teams interested in Saquon because they were interested in running backs in general. But Saquon might have said, look, I'm willing to take this dollar figure from the Eagles because that's where I want to be in the first place. Something to think about with Saquon. So it might not just been look at that offensive line like Lou Riddick said, because I may go into the conversation as well. He is going to play behind the best offensive line he has ever been behind as an NFL player. Get some of your text messages right now, 609-403-0973. Your DMs into the 973 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Steven Ventnor chimes in on the text board and says, the Birds are going to run the ball and utilize the short passing game. Is that what this means? Too bad we missed out on McKinney, but there are other options still out there. Great point about McKinney. McKinney was a guy that I would have been interested in, Steve, but I understand that he got a big contract from the Packers, and the Packers are a team that looked like they are on the up and coming teams, the way they played in the postseason, how they got so close to beating the 49ers in the divisional round. Brock Purdy had to lead a comeback against the Packers after the Packers already smashed the Cowboys in the previous round. So you thought that they were an up and coming team, and then you saw that they go out and said, yeah, Aaron Jones isn't good enough. He had a good year last year. They bring in Josh Jacobs. They turn around and they say, you know what? Our defense was good last year, but it can be better. We're going to go at Xavier McKinney. So, I mean, I say kudos to the Packers for being willing to make those kind of moves, right? That's at least how I look at it, you know. By the way, we just have some breaking news as well involving the New York Giants. The Carolina Panthers are trading Brian Burns to the Giants for a 2nd and 5th round pick. So the Giants are going to extend Burns to a max deal. Remember, he was on a franchise tag. It looks like Burns is going to get $87.5 million in guaranteed money from the Giants. So the Giants lose McKinney, they lose Barkley, but they add Devin Singletary, who was with Brian Dable in Buffalo, and they go out and get an elite pass rusher in Brian Burns. Bad news for the Cowboys as well. I'll tell you why that in just a minute. But yeah, big news. Brian Burns traded from the Panthers to the Giants for a 2nd and 5th round pick, and the Giants are giving Burns a 5-year contract of $87.5 million guaranteed, worth up to $150 million. So, a big deal. Also, a few minutes ago, the Lions and the Bucks made a trade. The Buccaneers are getting a 3rd round pick, and the Lions are receiving Carlton Davis, the corner, along with 2 6th round picks. So we still got some movement going on around the NFL. Wow, 2 interesting trades to say the least. But back to your point about McKinney. So McKinney gets picked up by the Packers, and like I said, I think that's a very valuable deal for them, and I respect the Giants, the Packers a lot for making that deal happen. But as Steve from Ventnor is saying on the text board, there are still other safeties to keep an eye on out there, right? Justin Simmons and Eddie Jackson, they were released by their teams. They are guys who were in the Vic Fangio scheme previously, so they have a level of familiarity. Jordan Poyer was released. Jamal Adams was released recently. So I know Jordan Fuller is still out there. At least the last time I checked Twitter there. So there are guys out there that could be picked up who the Eagles can go get. So even though they didn't get, a Xavier McKinney, even though they didn't get some of the other guys who are out there, I know, what's his name? I know Antoine Winfield was franchised by the Bucks, so he wouldn't have been available anyway. Kevin Byard went to the Bears. Geno Stone, he went to the Bengals. So, there are some guys. Oh, Brandon Jones. That's the one I'm saying. Brandon Jones went from Miami to the Broncos. So I know some guys were signed, but they're not all locked out, and you're not totally out of the market. So something to think about there. The other point of what Steve was saying there, which is interesting, I want to touch on really quick, is using the passing game and running the ball. The Eagles, over the last few years, have been one of the better running football teams in the NFL. They've been very successful as a running football team. So it wouldn't be surprising if they go out there and decide to run the ball more. It wouldn't be surprising if they are the kind of team that goes out there and says, look, we are going to have a more balanced attack. And then the short passing game, my theory is that I know the Eagles we're not a team that threw the ball to the running back as much as we may have liked. But the reality is that it's not that they didn't throw the ball to running backs at all. I think that there's a misconception from last year that because Swift didn't get a ton of pass targets himself, they didn't throw the ball. In fact, Swift and Gainwell combined for 69 catches themselves last year. And then you throw in the 2 seconds that Boston Scott played last year. That 69 goes to 73. So you still threw the running backs 73 catches between 3 guys last year. It's not like the Eagles won't throw the ball to running backs. DeAndre Swift was targeted 49 times, Gainwell 37 times. So it's not that the Eagles don't implement the short passing game. It's that I think that they have had passing games and coordinators who didn't prioritize it. Because again, you look at what the Eagles have done, they don't ignore throwing the running back the ball. They just don't prioritize it. And maybe that's where Kellen Moore does come in, Steven Ventnor. Maybe he comes in and says, look, I understand that under Brian Johnson, you threw the ball more than you threw it under Shane Steichen, but I'm not going to sit here and act like that we can't throw the ball to the back. I just had trouble believing that Jalen Hurts is anti-throwing the ball to running backs. I watched too much Jalen Hurts in college to know that he has been a check down guy at times. It's not like Jalen Hurts went through his entire college and NFL career being like, you know what I don't do? I don't throw to running backs. No, that's not what happened. There's a perception that Jalen Hurts doesn't like to throw the ball to running backs. I don't understand where that perception comes from. You're talking about a guy in Jalen Hurts that I think if he's coached up properly, he throws the ball to whoever's open. I don't think he's the guy who sits there and says, you know who I'm never going to throw it to? That guy. You know what I mean? Like I just don't see him being that kind of quarterback. I don't see him being that stubborn or that obstinate or whatever description you want to give him. I mean, I think Jalen Hurts is going to run the offense he's asked to run. I think that's who he is. When he was at Alabama, the last full year that he started at quarterback before he lost the starting job to Tua Tagovailoa in the national championship, people forget that at Alabama, that year that he was the starting quarterback for the full year that got the championship game, running backs were second and third in passes caught that year. So if Hurts is willing to throw to running backs, maybe the problem is the play calling. I always go back to that. Play calling is, unless you are a Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers prototype where you basically call and run your own offense, I don't see a scenario where Jalen Hurts is going to be like, hey, coach, I know you called this play, but you know what? I hate you, coach. I'm not going to listen to you. Hey, running back, you go block for me because I'm not going to throw you the ball. I don't see him doing that. I don't think Jalen Hurts is that kind of person. Let's squeeze in another text before we get the break at 609-403-0973. Texter says, does this mean Howie's finally going to draft a running back? Because this seems like it's a whole new world. That's from an anonymous texter. He drafted Nakobe Dean a couple of years ago in the 3rd round. So in the most literal sense, they have drafted running backs. I don't see them being the kind of team that is anti-drafting a linebacker. I think the problem for the Eagles is that they look at the linebacker position historically as a position that they don't want to develop. I think that's the bigger issue here. Because in recent years, a lot of the better linebackers for them, Nigel Bradham during the year they won the championship. Last year, they didn't draft Kazir White, and TJ Edwards was an undrafted free agent. Nigel Bradham, they brought him in via free agency. I mean, I just don't see how the Eagles like to draft and develop. The last guy they drafted and developed who was good, drafted, because remember TJ Edwards wasn't drafted, was Jordan Hicks, and they let him go because of his injury history. Aside from that, I can't think of a guy who they drafted and they fully developed. So to me, I don't look at it as the Eagles are anti-linebacker. So could they draft a linebacker? Sure. I think it's certainly possible. But considering where the Eagles are in the 2024 NFL draft, I mean, it really depends on, if I'm going to pull up a random mock draft right now, because I don't see them drafting in the first round. Okay, I can see them drafting linebacker in the second round, but with the Eagles drafted 22 overall, the players that could be available after that point, I mean, Peyton Wilson is a guy who's listed on this mock draft in front of me. Okay, he is a guy who has developed into a linebacking prospect, but he is not a guy that everyone agrees upon in terms of his evaluation, right? You got a pass rusher that some people like in Latu, and from UCLA, not a pure linebacker, but a pass rusher. Could the Eagles go there at 20? I think that's more likely than a linebacker. So, but you could go a linebacker in the later in the draft. I don't think that they look at linebacker, though, as a priority over who's going to be the right guard. We still don't know who that is. Do you? I don't. Don't tell me it's going to be Tyler Steen, because that's no guarantee. I said this last week here on 97.3 ESPN. To me, if the Eagles are to be a team, as Michael Lombardi says, that has a history of doing certain things, then what about several years ago when they acquired Brandon Brooks? Brandon Brooks was a really good right guard they brought in to protect and help Jason Kelsey. And then he became a better player once he had better guards around him. So, you know what? It's something to think about. I think it's more likely that they go pass rusher, offensive line in the first round than I do a linebacker. I just don't see them doing that because it's not who they are. And the problem, honestly, with this year's draft is that there's no real consensus on some of these players on the offensive line, because there's a lot of guys that people say, well, this guy could be a guard. Someone like Alabama's J.C. Latham. Well, he could be a guard and be the tackle of the future. And it's like, okay, but he's not a guard. That's why I say, if I'm the Eagles, my next dollar is going to an offensive lineman. Okay, my next dollar is going to, let's shore up that offensive line, because we just gave Saquon Barkley a bunch of money. Now, let's not let him down. Let's not let our quarterback down. Let's not let our running back down. Let's not let our team down, because you lost Jason Kelsey. You lost a future Hall of Famer. And I think that's the reason why, anonymous texter at 609-403-0973, that the Eagles are not like, oh, yeah, let's go get linebackers, because in their mind, they say, we got other needs. For better or for worse. I'll wrap up the hour coming up, Side Plus coming up in less than 10 minutes from now. Your next opportunity to qualify for the Phillies Trip to Baltimore contest presented by Phillies Sports Trips, where the Eagles watch party will be, the Phillies watch party will be March 28th, where Mike Gill and Sports Bash will be there for Phillies opening day. And if you're caller number 7, you qualify for the chance to win the Phillies to Baltimore trip on March 28th. But you must be caller number 7 in less than 10 minutes, and you must be present March 28th at Maynard's in Margate.
Wake up weekday mornings from 6 to 10 a.m. with Unsportsmanlike on 97.3 ESPN with Evan Cohen, Super Bowl champion Chris Canty, and Michelle Small. Can't wake up without it. Brought to you by the Gallery Bar Book and Games at Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City.
Have you heard of naloxone? It's a simple nasal spray that can stop an overdose and save a life. Naloxone is available for free at most New Jersey pharmacies. No questions asked. Visit stopoverdoses.nj.gov to learn more. From New Jersey Human Services.
Thanks for calling Discover. This is Gabby.
Hey, Gabby. It's Jennifer Coolidge. Hi. I'm so glad I reached you at 2 a.m.
Oh, of course. Anyone with a Discover card can call and talk to a real person 24/7. Now, how can I help?
Yeah, I used my Discover card to buy these yellow pleather pajamas, and I'm just not sure I'm pulling them off.
24/7 U.S.-based customer service. It pays to Discover. Limitations apply. Learn more at discover.com/credit card.
To celebrate the new Quick Draw Progressive from the New Jersey Lottery, give it up for the rolling jackpot.
The jackpot keeps rolling, rolling jackpot rolling. It's growing all right.
Quick Draw is now Quick Draw Progressive with a free shot at winning a rolling jackpot with every play.
Quick Draw, jackpot, jackpot, Quick Draw, play today. All right.
Play Quick Draw Progressive today.
Anything can happen in Jersey.
Must be 18 or older to buy a lottery ticket. Please play responsibly. If you or somebody knows a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Pizza's here. Oh, great. I'd love some, but I'm worried about my stomach issues.
If you're worried about having diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose, oily stools, it may not just be stomach issues. It could be a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and talk to your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
And now, a poem for all you lovebirds out there. Getting down on getting down. Some cars are red, others are blue. Trade in your old car and drive something new.
Fall in love with saving at Matt Blatt Nissan. How about 1.9% financing for 60 months on every new 23 Rogue in stock?
Oh yeah, it's on at Matt Blatt Nissan.
With over 200 new cars in stock and incoming. Come see why Matt Blatt is your premier Nissan dealer. This month only, lease a brand new Sentra for $259 a month with only $19.99 down. With Matt Blatt Nissan's 4-day love it or leave it return policy, you simply can't make a mistake. Matt Blatt Nissan.com. Rate qualifications exist with approved credit. $27.78 per thousand financed on in-stock 2023 Rogues. Not all will qualify. Not valid on previous purchase. Go to mattblattnissan.com for complete details or call 844-917-4758. Price includes all costs to be paid by consumer, except for licensing, registration, and taxes. VIN RY263938. Centra sale price $21,520. It's on at Matt Blatt Nissan on the Black Horse Pike. Harbor Township.
Sneezing, coughing, stuffy nose, runny nose, post-nasal drip, interrupted sleeping. I was groggy at the end of the day.
Allergies and sinus congestion were making Jana miserable. Then, a friend recommended Navage. Navage provides immediate drug-free congestion relief, flushing your nasal passages with refreshing saline and sucking out mucus, germs, and other airborne irritants. Navage helps you breathe easier, sleep better, and feel your best right away.
Navage gave me instant relief. I didn't have to wait 30 minutes. I didn't have to wait an hour, 90 minutes. I didn't have to wait a minute. I ran the rinse and I felt better.
Stop suffering from congestion and start breathing and feeling your best again with Navage. Navage.
I've had people ask me how I find relief, and I tell them Navage immediately. This thing is amazing.
Navage is available at Navage.com or at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and Rite Aid.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Brakes? We can save you 15% on that. We have OE quality Duralast brake pads and rotors in stock, ready for pickup or delivery. We also have calipers, brake fluid, tools, and anything else you'll need to do the job right. When you get Duralast pads and rotors together, you'll save 15%. It's just part of what makes us America's #1 brakes destination.
Get in the zone, AutoZone.
Do you love a good cigar almost as much as your family? Well, maybe that's an exaggeration, but you can find that perfect cigar at Smoker's Haven. With 5 New Jersey locations, Smoker's Haven has the finest selection of cigars in the area, like Ashton, My Father's, Romeo and Julieta, Monte Cristo, and more. All from the finest tobacco leaves and hand-rolled by the world's finest cigar makers. All locations are fully open. Stop in and let them help you find the perfect cigar to pair with your life. See all they have and their locations at smokershavennj.com.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
My mom was so tired all the time. And anytime I told her a problem, she always had one solution. She'd be like, you should take a nap. Both my wrists could be cut, and I could be holding a knife. And I could be like, I don't want to be here. And she'd be like, have you slept?
From Saturday Night Live, his Netflix specials, and Peacock's Bupkis, Pete Davidson Prehab Tour. Saturday, July 20th, Ovation Hall and Ocean Casino Resort. Tickets on sale now at theoceanac.com. Pete Davidson Prehab Tour, live.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
Before we get out of here, I mentioned that I would touch on where the Cowboys fell apart today, because I know for a lot of people, the headline is going to be they lost Tony Pollard, right? But to me, the bigger story is the other guy they lost. They lost their starting center, Tyler Biadasz. And the reason why Biadasz is a big deal to bring up is because people were so concerned years ago how they were going to fill the voids on the interior of their offensive line, right? And Travis Frederick was an elite center for them who had to have a premature retirement basically because of injury issues. So when the Cowboys drafted Biadasz, people were wondering, okay, well, he's from Wisconsin. Can he live up to the expectations? Well, he was a Pro Bowler in 2022. And last year, according to Pro Football Reference, he had the fourth best pass blocking percentage, and he was the fourth best in the NFL in not allowing quarterback pressures of all NFL offensive linemen. So this guy is really good. And the Cowboys let him leave. So now, no Tyron Smith, a left tackle. They got to figure that situation out. I guess they might move Tyler Smith out there. I don't know. So no Tyron Smith, no more Tyler Biadasz. You lost two of your starting offensive linemen and your starting running back. And I'm supposed to sit here and be like, yeah, the Cowboys are still a threat. No. No, I don't think that at all. I think the Cowboys got as many answers to still make as anybody out there. It's a huge concern that Dallas basically lost a huge chunk of their offensive line. That's a big deal for the Eagles. Eagle fans should be rejoicing right now. They're gotten better. Dallas got worse today. All right, you hear the sound of caller number 7. It's your time to shine at 609-573-3776. 609-573-3776. Caller number 7. You are in for the Phillies trip to Baltimore contest, where you and a friend get to go down to Baltimore, watch the Phillies versus the Orioles in Camden Yards. Full spread of great food from Phillies Sports Trips for the tailgate. It's an amazing opportunity for you to go watch the Phillies play one of the best teams in baseball, the Orioles, in Baltimore this summer, Father's Day weekend. But you must be calling number 7 at 609-573-3776, and then be present March 28th at Maynard's in Margate for the Phillies watch party with Mike Gill and the Sports Bash. 609-573-3776. Call number 7. Good luck. I'm Josh Hennig. Have a great night, everybody.